Welcome everybody to another episode of Mindset U. Jason Moreno here. We got Rantis and Baby Boy Mo. Um, Today's episode is all about acceptance and if we feel like a burden or not. And anybody else can chip in because I kind of forgot. But I guarantee it's a decent podcast, and there's about 37 minutes of it that's usable. And if you listen for the whole thing, you might learn something. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and you can find us anywhere that you want to listen to a podcast. It's literally 10 of you, and you all already know where to go. But I'll tell you guys anyway, just in case you need a refresher.
Start again, bro. It's just a tangent of random thoughts.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, I was rolling.
I think that's the greatest way to start the podcast.
Yeah,
Everybody's going to listen to it. They're going to follow through. Jay, just cut it right here. Let it start.
I'll start this off with a few questions. One question. How do we, as individuals, and we'll go round table, how do you feel when someone offers or does something for you without any interaction of, not interaction, what's the word? Exchange. Like just doing something for you because they love you, because they want to care for you.
Learning to accept it better. I've always not used to asking a lot from people, and I guess like having a wife now, and it's like all these little interactions and stuff. It's just learning to accept and embrace it and be thankful. I think that's really what's. But it still feels weird sometimes. I'm like, I don't need this. I don't deserve this. Why did you get me this? It's still a lot of that. Like even when it comes to like the registry for the reception in June, she's like, "Do you want to put anything?" I was like, "No, put whatever you want." Like I'm okay. So it's weird accepting it from like other people still, and I don't know what it is. That it's like it makes me like feel weird about it, and I try to pinpoint it, and I don't really know why, but I feel like men a lot have that weird thing where it's like, no, I'm supposed to be the provider. Nobody's supposed to provide for me. I'm a little bitch if I get provided for, and I think it's just something that we need to break. We need hugs. It's nice to have gifts. It's nice to be thought of. Even like the simple things.
How about you, Mo? How do you feel about receiving?
I knew Jay was going to say that. It feels awkward for sure. I don't. In terms of gifts and things like that. I don't really. It's not that I don't care. Like it's nice. It makes me feel awkward. I'm not one to like want gifts. I think where I like appreciative is like if someone cooks for me or something like that.
Oh yeah,
that's definitely something I'm grateful for. Yeah, and I think just significance, just acknowledging that, what I've been able to do for somebody, or just me being present in there. I think that's always cool. But yeah, I agree with Jay on that. It is awkward.
Yeah, and for me, on that note, I've realized that I have a certain threshold, and also it also depends what type of thing. Like gifts, I'm okay with. I don't feel awkward with receiving gifts and things like that. But acts of service, there's a easy threshold in which I feel like really, like you said, awkward, but also like almost like shame in receiving and accepting. Like I'll give you guys an example. Just yesterday, I'm sitting on the couch, and my wife says to me, do you want to put your feet in water, in like Epsom salt water or whatever? And I'm like, okay, cool. and I'm about to get up, but my daughter's talking to me, so I'm like, okay, I start talking to my daughter, and then my wife comes back with the thing full of water, carrying it, and a little towel to put on the floor, and all this stuff. And she gives me like a little foot rub, and I'm just like that. And I was thinking about it where like it feels awkward to receive it, but I'm trying to let myself receive it. But there's like this thought of like, who the fuck I think I am? I'm king here, fucking receiving all this. And that, going back to what Jay said, of like, I'm the one supposed to be doing this, for someone else, like for my wife or whatever. And then after that, she like gave me a back rub, and I'm just like getting more tense because it's like over the threshold. So I was thinking about it a lot of like, damn, that's interesting because like when I'm on the other side of it, when I'm giving, I feel good about it. It's not like I feel like a slave to the person or anything like that. I feel good that I can provide, I can care for, things like that. So it's interesting when I think of like when I'm on the other side of it, I have a perception of the relationship. When I'm on the receiving end of it, I feel like I'm taking advantage of someone or like treating them below me or something like that.
Yeah. No, that makes, I get that. I just don't, I guess when somebody's doing, like, for example, like when Paula's doing something nice for you, why do you think it's like like, who do I think I am kind of thing, when it's just like, oh, like she's doing something nice, like, do you like, were
Yeah,
we
for
not
me,
hugged enough as kids or something? Like,
for me, like I said, it's like the threshold. It's like one thing. It's like cool. But the more I kind of feel like, what have I done to deserve this? Like what have I provided
yeah.
for this? Because I thought about this, like, with a VidaProject, for example. If I had a long day of interacting with people and feeling like I had an impact that day, or I was able to help a few clients and even staff or whatever, and I come home and then I'm receiving something like that, I feel like I'm more willing, more open, which is like, oh, I think I earned it. But what have I done today to earn this? And that feeling kind of what's starting to click for me as I thought about it.
Yeah. Do you think that has to do with like a sense of like we kind of forget what we do as like the providers, like as the quote unquote, like, you take on this provider role, that you forget about all the things that you do for other people. And you're like, oh wait, no, it's like maybe, like when you're like, oh, like what did I do to deserve the back rub? And it's like, well, you're a wonderful husband, you're a great father, you're, a best friend to your wife kind of thing. Like, I think we forget that sometimes. I think that because we think like, oh no, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's just what it is. That's just why am I being praised for what I'm supposed to do?
Which sounds like a very Hispanic mom kind of like, what you want, you like, I've always thought about that, the whole what is it called when give kids payment for doing chores around the house? What's that called?
Bribery.
Allowance.
Allowance. Look how distant it is. An allowance. Like the idea of an allowance in like my house is like, what are you talking about? You don't get an allowance for doing the shit that you're supposed to be doing for the house. So like that, that to talk about what you're saying is like the idea of like, oh yeah, this is I don't deserve praise for the standard.
No, I get that, but I think like when you look at like the grand scheme of things, or like the big picture, when you think about how many people don't have that or never really experienced that, like throughout their entire lives, even as like adults and stuff, where it's like, oh shit, like, we're fortunate.
Why do you have to think about it from the perspective of self too? Why don't you think about it from Paula's perspective, where it was just like she wanted to feel good in that moment. And just like how you feel good by doing acts of service for others, she wanted to feel that in that moment as well.
Yeah. Is it an
Why?
ego thing?
Well,
Yeah,
that's
like is it an ego thing? Yeah.
Right.
well, that's why I highlighted that when I think of myself doing that, I see it as a whole different thing. I see that like I'm getting a benefit from doing this for you. I see that. So when it's the other way around, I can recognize that logically, but it's hard to reframe the mindset to think of it as that, like that benefit in terms of her as well. The one thing that helps me is also thinking about like this is a contribution to the relationship, if you will. That part helps me. But as I thought about it more and more, one of the things that kind of highlighted in my brain that made sense was like, I'm afraid to feel like a narcissist. And which the idea of like a narcissist is like you think you deserve all of this stuff, that everyone should be bowing towards you, like that idea of the narcissist, because you feel so undeserving in a sense, right? It's like the baseline of narcissism. So it's almost like feel bad to feel like it's okay to deserve this, because then that means you're a narcissist or a bad person,
So then somewhere deep inside you believe that there's part of you that's narcissistic.
And that's the interesting part of it, because when it comes to like looking at any type of condition, if you will, I feel like we're all teetering the lines of it, right? It's like certain perspectives, certain shifts. And with my viewpoint of that is like, we're always teetering the line of like, you can become a narcissist. You can also, become someone who looks at things so negatively that never sees the positive in the world. You can also be someone that only sees, oh, how great the world is, and refuses to look at the negative. Like, I feel like all of those things are almost within reach of choice and actions. So your actions and decisions on a daily basis, on a moment to moment basis, is what fuels that. So yeah, it's like we're teetering the line of that. So it's not that I think I'm a narcissist, is I feel like I have the capacity to be a narcissist. I feel like I have the capacity to be anything if I lean too much towards that direction.
I can't help that this whole thing, and I know that you praised me for being an adult in the beginning, but like every time we talk about receiving and stuff like that, I just can't help but think about butt stuff. I can't. It's so hard.
Man. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can think of being a narcissist from receiving a foot rub. I
guess that's what it's like.
That's a pretty big extreme, Francis.
All right, gentlemen.
I do think there might be a component, at least if I think about it, it's like in order for that to happen, for you to accept it, there's almost a moment that you have to lose control or give up control. So I'm just thinking about by like being in the perspective of someone doing an act of service for me, and me being okay with it is me relinquishing control and surrendering to that, which means I have to be okay with not contributing and being present in the moment. So I think that to me makes more sense when, when I think about being uncomfortable with receiving an act of service. It's like, I have no control in this situation. And if I say, stop or this is uncomfortable, then you are hurting somebody else's feeling, which I would think makes you less of a narcissist, as you're like sympathetic towards someone else's emotions because they are doing something.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe, like below, comment, let us know your thoughts, and continue to enjoy.
Yeah, I just think that as dudes, we got to be more comfortable with accepting things and not being in control, and not to that's one thing I've learned a lot, being with Ash, where it's just like you just got to give in. You can't. You're not. I'm not always gonna take the lead on everything. I'm not always gonna be have the answer for everything. A lot of the times, she's the one who leads the ship and looks out for me and cares about me. And it's always, for example, the other day, she just like in the middle of the night, she was like, "When's the last time you got a physical?" And I was like, "Mind your business." And she was like, "You are my business." And I was like, I have like 4 more months before I have to go get one. It's just little things like that, like somebody asking you just like your well-being and whatnot. My literal reaction was, "It's none of your business." And it's like, no, she's my wife. I think my health is her business, kind of thing. And I don't know why their immediate reaction is just like, "Don't worry about me. I'm a man. I got this. It's okay." Because half the time I don't have it, and going back to like the whole gallbladder thing, like I let that shit rock for like almost a year before I crippled in pain and had to get taken care of.
There's one thing you said there, which kind of highlights the idea of, feeling like a burden.
Yeah.
So like, what do you, if that word feeling like a burden does kind of feel like the feelings that you're having, like what is it about receiving that highlights that feeling like a burden?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could think of is like Catholic guilt, like that Spanish guilt that we have, like when it goes back to like your mom. It's like, why am I gonna fucking congratulate you on shit you should be doing? So then it's like, well, no, I should receive praise for what I'm doing, or yeah, you dick, how dare you? you know.
How
Yeah,
about you,
I
Mo?
don't know.
Does burden speak to you in any way? Feeling like a burden?
Yeah, I think it does.
For you, I can even tell you a story, Mo, where when you were living at
Center.
VidaProject,
Yeah.
I'm like, "Dude, you can come over and take a shower." He's like, "No, I'm good." I'm like, "Dude, you're more than welcome to. I promise you, it's not a burden." He's like, "No, I'm good." I'm like, "Dude," it always amazed me with that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think it's normal for people to struggle with those things. Like, I don't think it's out of the norm to feel uncomfortable with receiving, especially if you come from an upbringing where you didn't get those things. And I think in our culture, it's more more common that the male in the Hispanic culture doesn't receive those types of acts of service as frequently. It's and then there's the other extreme of that where you have like the mama's boy from the Hispanic family that just got everything they wanted, and they think they deserve it.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting dynamic, but I don't think it's out of the norm to feel like if you were to characterize what behaviors or feelings or emotions are normal. But it is an interesting concept to think about.
Yeah.
So I guess with that you raised normal, right? What does normal mean? Does normal mean that is the most common?
Yeah, I think that you're not alone in those thoughts. I think it's very common. So for it to be common is to say that it's normal in the sense that it exists and it doesn't make us any different. What I think now, or what you're bringing up or raising, is the awareness to it, and like questioning, like, okay, why does this exist? Right. I think that's interesting. I think that's maybe an opportunity for some men or even women to, because I know that Marina struggles with that too.
Oh, everybody does.
Everybody does.
It goes across the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. There's this idea that you didn't deserve. And I even think here in American culture, it's just, most people think that way because it's just like, you have to earn it. You have to work. You have to work hard for those things. And if you don't work hard enough, then you don't get these things in life.
Yeah.
That's kind of a philosophy.
So the reason why I asked like the normal is like, because it's normal, because it's standard, because it's almost like a cultural expectation. Does that mean that it's standard? It's what we are going to feel and that's what it is? Or is there a hopeful kind of different dynamic in terms of receiving it that we can work towards?
I mean, anything is possible. This is mindset you, bro.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
You want to be the power bottom of acceptance, then you power bottom your way into accepting stuff.
Yeah, you can't listen to this podcast and think that there's no other way. Like,
Yeah.
come on, guys. You guys are smarter than this.
That's why I'm highlighting like the normal aspect. It's like, this is like standard in terms of like cultural, but is it almost, I don't want to use the word optimal because it seems so aggressive, but is it the direction that we want to continue to live in?
But it's the idea that you have to feel comfortable with it. Like, why do you have to feel comfortable with that? What's that saying? Is there something wrong with you if you feel uncomfortable with it? Like that's what I'm trying to understand. If there's something, there's something wrong with you. Okay,
you can't accept things. Yeah.
All right, go see a therapist. No, but I think it's okay to feel that way. I don't think it's a negative thing.
So
I think it's just a matter of like not beating yourself up.
Who's to say that what you're feeling isn't just like this very pleasant emotion that you've never experienced in your life before, and of course you feel awkward because you're just like, I don't even know what this is, you know.
So I think that's a great point, because it's like identifying, looking at it from the perspective of like, if this is number one, a feeling that you experience, but then if it's a feeling that you take action with, meaning that you then block anyone from giving you, because you're like, no, don't do it. Like, for example, my wife's going to give me a foot rub. I kick her off like, no, don't do it. Right. If you become shut down like that because of these feelings, I think that becomes a problem, because then you're unable to build the relationship. You're unable to build those connections.
I don't think you would ever do that to your wife, because she'd rip your head off. So just say it.
And I think it also
more scared of your wife.
Yeah, but I think it also goes back to what Mo said. It's like we also have to think about like, maybe they want to feel good, you know, because they want to feel like they're providing. So you also have to take that into account as well, where it's like, you can't deny your partner of a moment that they want to feel like they did something special for you, you know. And I think that, you know, we tend to downplay it a lot, where it's like, we just gotta show that we're appreciative, and I make it a habit of like thanking Ash for all that she does all the time. And it's even little things. It's just like the little stuff that you don't even think about, that you're like, oh yeah, like you're supposed to do that. It goes a long way to just know that I think it just comes down to like acknowledgement. And I think that's something that growing up, a lot of us didn't have. Like, my parents loved the shit out of me and gave me whatever I wanted, but it came at the mental price of my mom being like, you're the white boy, you don't do this, you're not my kid, if you don't do this, it's blah 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 kind of thing. And I think it just comes to that feeling of acceptance and being like, oh, I can, this is my safe space, this is okay. And I think that's why it's important to embrace, but also thank people for those acts of services and stuff, because it feels good. It feels good to be acknowledged.
I wanna kind of take this up a notch in the sense of, one thing is simply accepting when someone takes that step, but what about asking for
Nah,
a
fuck out
favor?
of here, bro. No. You a bitch if you ask for shit like that. No, I'm playing. Maybe she gave you the foot rub and the water because it's your birthday tomorrow.
I'm using that as kind of like a story, a moment in time, to talk about this idea of receiving. So I'm not trying to identify what my wife was doing and why and so on and so forth. Let's talk about that, because to me this kind of connects to all other things, right? So being able to ask and receive, that means that, if, like, you work, for example, you're able to ask people for help. You're able to ask and connect with people looking for opportunities. And within your friends, you can ask for help when you need it, instead of suffering and not showering. Any opportunities that come up,
The smelliest year of his life.
you're
I don't
willing
think I've
to be
ever
vulnerable.
cleaned myself. I know. I think it was the best year of cleaning I've ever had in my life. You know how detailed I had to get cleaning yourself in a sink? It's not the same.
My man really liked Pursuit of Happiness.
But the whole thing, that story with Moses, I feel like it was self-imposed
It's
on
such a
many
Mo
levels.
it's that's like, yeah, it's a very Mo thing.
And with it being self-imposed, I wonder, like, oh, actually, this goes into a whole different direction, but, like, why did you feel like you needed the suffering in that way, those challenges in that way?
I mean, I think that when you create your own challenges, you learn to persevere through it. I think that in the world that we live in, we have a lot of things that are afforded to us, and I think we take it for granted, and we don't really know what it feels like to not have those things. And I think that sometimes if you choose your suffering, it's easier than life choosing it for you. So I think that experience was me choosing the type of suffering that I wanted to endure, because I've heard of this type of stuff before. Like, my parents went through it. I'm sure kids in developing countries go through these types of things. And who's to say that I deserve something better than them right now, or not understand or can empathize with what they experience? So I think it was just an opportunity that I took. And yeah, it was hard, but I learned a lot of things, like how to manage money and how to survive with nothing. And
It worked out.
it worked out fucking well. So I think it was a great idea. And I would do it again.
So the reason why I asked that is because, to me, that goes hand in hand with, like, you said one thing is like, who's to say I deserve this over the person? So kind of goes hand in hand with the act of receiving care, receiving love, and things like that. It's like, it goes into the same realm. So how do we distinguish from being grateful to feeling as if we deserve it?
I don't think you ever deserve anything.
That sounds like Mo too.
Tell us more.
I think things are just the way they are. Like, there is no, this idea that you deserve something I think is bullshit. Like, it's all based on your story of who you are and how you identify and what you're capable of and who's in your life. Like, it doesn't matter I think it's not the idea of deserving, but it's more the idea of accepting, right? And accepting both the negative and positive that come in your life is what is deserving of you, right? Whatever, everything that comes your way. And what I mean by that is, like, if you accept that people are giving you things, then that's great. You know, you can feel comfortable with accepting, but you also have to be able to feel comfortable with accepting the shitty stuff that come your way too. And I think if you can learn to accept the shitty stuff, I think what makes it difficult is that if you go to the extreme where you always accept the shitty stuff and then good things come your way, then it's hard to accept that because there's a fear of loss that kind of starts to build up. It's like, well,
Like,
I
what
went
if
through all
you
this shit. I went through all this stuff. And so let me not accept this, because then if I accept this, it's something good. And then if I lose this good thing, then I'm back to where I started, you know?
Fear of feeling that loss again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if we kind of highlight what we talked about today, I personally picked out 3 things that we kind of discussed, which is, in essence, practicing the idea of self-compassion, right? Allowing yourself to be able to accept things, not because you deserve it, but because things show up in front of you as opportunities, and those opportunities are all fair game. The other thing was that it's a big part of relationships, giving and receiving. And finally, that you can practice that gratitude so that you're not feeling like a burden. You practice that gratitude by acknowledging that when someone is doing something for you, it's a benefit to them as well. They feel good.
Yeah. Where are you staring into right now, Francis? I feel like,
What do you mean?
I feel like you blacked out for a second.
That's what I'm thinking. I always stare
Had
into
to
space.
reboot. Yeah. No, it all comes back to, I think, what you guys talk about all the time is vulnerability. You know, it's being vulnerable to somebody else and being able to accept things and being able to ask for help and all that stuff. It just comes down to being vulnerable, and you have to allow yourself to do that to experience new things, whether good or bad, because regardless, it's going to come your way. That's how life works, right? There's, you know, it's not just good things. It's not just bad things. It's just things. And hopefully they work for you. And if they don't work for you, figure out how to fucking work around it, and you keep it moving. And yeah, if you're a
Beautifully
boat,
said.
just put up your sail. You know, and you're the boat. The sails are your emotions, and you just gotta let the wind be acceptance, and you just accept it all in.
That's fucking beautiful.
Right. All right. On that note, everybody, that was another episode of Mindset You. Finally, all 3 of us are in the same web chat thing. Don't forget to like, subscribe anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube TV, and my new OnlyFans. Other than that, guys, it's wonderful to see you. Don't forget, we changed up the format where we're giving you 2 episodes a month. So this is the first episode for April. You'll hear from us some other time. Thank you, guys, and we'll talk to you later.
Peace.